fellow DPP community. Thank you for tuning into the 4TheRecord podcast. 4TheRecord is a digital product passport consultancy agency that helps institutions and industry players to develop and implement their DPP strategy. Today, I'm speaking with Carolynn Bernier. She is a research engineer at the French Alternative Energies and Atomic Energy Commission. I'm talking with her about the EU-funded project Surpass 2 that she has been appointed to be the lead of, which consists of 13 pilots with downstream use cases in 5 product segments, namely textiles, mattresses, tires, electronics, and construction. Those projects focus on how DPP can make an impact on sustainability and help the industry beyond being compliant with the mandatory DPP requirements. She also shares examples for new use cases based on voluntary DPP data and how interoperability plays an important role here. I wish you an informative entertainment. Welcome to the podcast Digital Product Passports Insights. My name is Susanne Guth-Orlowski and I'm the founder and CEO of 4TheRecord, a digital product passport consultancy agency. My guest today is one of the most competent women in the area of digital product passports, the one and only Carolynn Bernier. She is research engineer at CEA, which is the French Alternative Energies and Atomic Energy Commission. And the DPP community knows her as Surpass Project 1 and 2 coordinator. I'm delighted to have you on this show. Welcome, Carolynn Bernier.
Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks for having me.
Carolynn, please introduce yourself with your background and your position at CEA.
Right. So I'm actually Canadian. I have a French nationality now for a few years. I live in France now, and my kids are French and all that. But I did my undergraduate studies in computer engineering at the University of Toronto. So as I said, computer and electrical engineering. I am physically in Grenoble, France. Which, as you know, has a very large microelectronics center. And so my background is in telecommunications, integrated circuit design, and IoT protocols. So did a lot of that. I don't do that anymore because I don't have time. But I also am in an embedded systems team working on embedded AI, for example. So innovation for industry, basically. And I started to work on the circular technologies for circular economy in 2020 as a research topic. Fell upon the DPP subject and started to wonder, how could that work? How could that actually work? And so I was curious. And so I started building the Surpass consortium by curiosity, very honestly, because, of course, I'm interested in creating technologies that could have a positive impact on the environment, and not only through the work on the digital product passports. We have a lot of activities in our lab on sustainable IT, sustainable embedded systems, environmental impact assessment of AI, and things like that. Okay. So this is just one of our activities relating technology and sustainability. And so that's how it started. And so that's how that's the reason why someone with a computer engineering microelectronics design background ends up working on an IT project. So that's how that happened.
Well, we are all glad that this happened, Carolynn. You are the coordinator of Surpass 2, and you have been of Surpass 1. Please give us a short legacy, maybe introduction of Surpass 1, what happened there, and what the continuation is in Surpass 2 in short, and then we can discuss on more details later on.
Right. So CIRPASS 1 project was a CSA type project. So a CSA is a coordination and support action, which is a collaborative type of project that the European Commission launches when they need guidance on topics, any topic. And so this was a CSA on the digital product passport with the goal to create consensus on a standards-based DPP system. And when we started in 2022, basically we only had a draft ESPR to work with.
ESPR, the Eco Design for Sustainable Products Regulation proposal of the European Commission.
Yes, and that proposal went through several iterations, several drafts. So it's like so we were like engineers trying to build the specifications for an IT system with the specifications changing all the time. So it was quite challenging to follow all this. And also another huge challenge that we ran into was that circular economy is a multidisciplinary field, hugely interdisciplinary. And so one day I can be talking to blockchain experts and another to textile recyclers, right? So getting to a common language, what are we talking about? What are the words that we're going to use to describe things, and a common understanding of what the DPP is was basically the goal of Surpass 1. And trying to map out, okay, the issues. It's like a puzzle that you're trying to assemble. And what are the problems, and what are the issues, and what is clear, what is not clear, and how do we assemble that? So because the DPP is a bunch of technologies that have to work together.
And so also a bunch of segments, right? A bunch of segments that work together.
You by segments, do you mean sector?
Segments, yeah, product segments, sorry. Or sectors,
yeah,
I don't know. What word would you use?
We usually use sector specific, for example. Yeah, but I think that where the Commission, they had this fantastic idea, maybe for once, but anyways, this fantastic idea is that the DPP system is cross-sectoral or cross-segment, you say.
Yeah.
And that is just amazing.
So and across textiles and mattresses and steel and batteries, so product
and
segments,
chemicals,
I always say, product sectors. Yeah.
Exactly. And that is simply amazing. And I don't think that the Commission realized the value of their own proposal until now they do, but not in 2022. They didn't realize it. Now they do. But one thing that I'm concerned with always, and that's really what because I come from a background where our research is innovation for industry, so in the interest of industry. This is what I do. The fact that the DPP might end up being only a regulatory tool that is a burden to industry without bringing any advantage to industry, that is what concerns me most. Okay, and that is what I endeavor to make sure that never happens. Okay, so the DPP must be a useful tool for industry. Otherwise, it will only be a burden. But it has the potential to be an advantage, a competitive advantage. But it has to be designed in this way.
I fully agree, and I was delighted to read the EU Competitive Compass. I don't know if you've already looked into this, where DPP is explained as one tool of doing exactly that, what you say. So I think we can have good hope that this is the direction we're going into. Can you
crossing fingers,
Can you maybe let's move to Surpass 2 a little bit. I don't know if we've been ready with the Surpass 1. Let's move to Surpass 2, which is currently running. Give us a bit of an overview of what's happening, what's the timeline, what are the projects. And of course the goal of that project now.
Right. So So Surpass 1 was all on paper. All of our results are conceptual, and we made some videos to illustrate our points as well. But it's basically a paper study of what the DPP system could look like. In Surpass 2, we want to go from paper to real world, right? So, and in a large scale and in a cross-segment or cross-sector way, okay? We have five, if you include mattresses, sectors addressed in Surpass 2, mostly textiles, 6 pilots, including mattresses, focusing on textile products. But mattresses are more like furniture, so they're kind of an in-between type of product. But the furniture will likely be regulated soon too. So it's useful to have this pilot in our group. Then we have 5 pilots related to electrical and electronic equipment, and this goes from PV panels to secondhand IT, to audio equipment, etc. So many different product groups. Also dishwashers, vacuum cleaners, all sorts of things. And then we have a tire pilot with Michelin around tire retreading, and also we have a construction sector pilot with Co-Builder, which is very interesting because of the construction product regulation, which also institutes a kind of a digital product passport. Whether this will be exactly the same IT system than the ESPR DPP, that's to be seen. But in an ideal world, this would be the case, right?
So my understanding that's also the idea that what is currently developed under standard JTC 24 DPP framework and system will be used for any DPP that is regulated in the European Commission. I haven't seen that written down somewhere, but if you're asking the European Commission, that's what you're usually getting as a response. So there is hope that this is the case.
There's hope. There's hope. There's hope. The construction sector has some particularities in that responsible economic operator, the companies are often short-lived and change all the time. So it's a kind of an industry that has some particularities. So we'll see how the CPR, the construction products regulation, how it evolves, if it will be completely aligned with the ESPR. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Be interesting to see. So anyways, coming back to our pilots, so there's 13 of them. So that's
very impressive number and diversity of projects. Yes.
But this was necessary. For me, it was we don't demonstrate anything if you don't do it wide scale and if you don't do it cross-sectoral. You don't demonstrate anything. And also what we do want to demonstrate is that they're interoperable among them. Okay? Because a DPP pilot, there's gazillions of DPP pilots out there. But DPP interoperable pilots, like that demonstrate that they're interoperable, that is new. That's what we want to do. Okay? So each pilot is about it goes from 2 to 15 partners. At least, no, there's not 2. There's like at least 4 to 15 partners in a pilot. And these and each is kind of an ecosystem of partners that create DPPs for some specific products and that use the DPP in B2B settings, and not B2C, but B2B settings, to achieve circular outcomes. Okay? Because so we are being funded by DG Connect under the Digital Europe program. And DG Connect, really, this is what makes them motivated for the DPP, how the DPP could be infrastructure for circular businesses. Okay? Because, and this is also something that DG Environment agrees with this, is that the DPP, to have impact, it has to change the way we create value around products. It's not just about information to consumers.
Of course.
It's about how companies can use DPP data to achieve sustainable outcomes. So keep the value longer for product.
And this is also where all these preparatory stories come in, studies come in, that are actually identifying that impact, right? And then based on that impact, we're deciding on which data should be in the product passport. The focus is always the impact.
Yes, but that's for the mandatory data.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is correct, but it's only for the mandatory data. So in Surpass 2, all of the pilots are going beyond mandatory.
Okay, interesting.
All of them, okay? Because the DPP cannot be just a regulatory tool to contain mandatory data. It cannot be that. Companies want a tool to share data with their ecosystem partners in an easy way. They want this, okay? So that means that we can use the DPP, the mandatory DPP, and add data in it, the data that we actually want to share, that companies actually want to share.
That's an important
and are
point.
inventing all sorts of DPP-like systems to do it, okay? There's gazillions of these DPP-like non-interoperable systems to do exactly that. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you have a problem of too much non-interoperable systems. So this is where what we have to prove is that the DPP can be both a regulatory tool. It has to contain this data. This data must be presented to the actors who have the legal right to see this data. Okay, but you can embark additional data that doesn't have to be public.
Yeah, of course.
It's only the partners you want to share the data with, right? That they can access, and they piggyback this data on the DPP.
Can you give us a concrete example of what data that would be that maybe helps companies to create better business models or create better recyclability of their material? Or what are the examples exactly? What's the additional data that the companies want to add?
So I'll just cite our very first #1 pilot, which is the first on the list. Okay, the problem is if I choose a pilot, then I
have to mention
12
everything.
others.
No, we don't want that. So maybe just give the example of the data. Yeah.
Well, so for example, if a company wants to move to a product as a service type of a business model. The DPP is a useful tool to enable this.
Yeah.
Okay. But this has nothing whatsoever to do with the regulatory data, because the regulatory data will not include things that enable product as a service, meaning tracking information, how many times the product has been repaired, how many times the product has been put in different hands, how many times. What is the wear level of the product? What is the, all like much more detailed information than the regulation will ever require.
I see.
Regulation will never require all of this.
So I can determine how often was that product used, what it's still worth, what I should pay for it as a service, and then create more new business models on top of that.
Well, so this information may not actually be used by the person using the product. It might be used by the company, and they use the DPP as a way to track this information, for example.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the data will be used by the user of the product. It might be used by my business unit that is responsible for making these sorting decisions, for example.
Yeah.
Or
so that's the downstream of the product, downstream data exchange. But I think you also do projects with data exchange more upstream, right? I'm not sure.
What are you thinking about?
One of your pilots, are they all focused on data exchange downstream? The product is placed on the market, and then everything that comes after that is downstream for me. Everything that was before that is upstream for me. So where are your
all
projects
of them are
located?
downstream.
Yeah.
All of them are downstream.
All of them
All
are
of them
downstream.
are downstream.
All right.
All of them are downstream, which does not mean that we're not interested in what happens upstream, of course, because that's where the data comes from, right?
Yeah.
And this is why interoperability with upstream DPPs, such as the UN Transparency DPP, for example, is so important, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. And this is where due diligence certificates, tracing certificates are being exchanged, made interoperable technically and also semantically. So that's interesting. I wasn't aware that you mainly looking at downstream. That's very interesting. So can you give us an example of, for example, are you also looking at batteries still and like state of health information that is mandatory needs to be exchanged?
The way the call was written, we were not authorized to work on batteries.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. So everything but batteries.
Right. Yeah, everything, but not everything. Like I said, we're mostly looking at these 4 product groups, including plus 5 if you include mattress as a distinct product group. But there's a lot of overlap in the data model for the mattress textile sections with the textile products, for example. So sorry, what was your question?
No, I was that's fine. I just wanted to move maybe to the area where I wanted to ask you, are you experimenting with different technologies? I could imagine with 13 pilots, everyone has a different idea of what would make most sense. So give us a little bit of insight there. How are you creating this interoperability? How does it work?
Well, we're of course aspiring to align with the standards that the JTC 24 are currently drafting. So, so we don't decide on how these decisions will be made. So we're following this work with a lot of interest, of course, but we're not the ones who make these decisions. However, all of the pilots that came to us had some preliminary work already achieved, meaning that these pilots were already constituted as pilots even before they joined us, our group. And so I chose the most different types of pilots and technologies possible. Some use blockchain, most don't. Some use distributed identifiers.
For what do they use blockchain? Because you can use it in different ways, right? So what?
I'm not so familiar enough.
Okay,
I won't
no
be able to answer you. But ideally, the DPP systems should be so open to enable all types of technologies to interoperate. And so this is why there's a huge variety in identification systems, in and data models, as varied as possible, because this is the point that we want to make, that we can build a bare bones DPP system there as light as possible, as least complex, on which you can build all sorts of things and use all sorts of technologies. That's the goal, right? A very light, easy to use system that can be like the web, right? So the web is a wonderful decentralized database of HTML pages, right? Yeah. That's what the web is, right? So now we want the web of DPP, of product data. That's what we want to create.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but on top of the web, there's a huge variety of things that were created because the web technology is relatively easy to use, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's the same idea that we want for the DPP system: easy to use technology on which you can build all sorts of things.
Which is also important for small and medium-sized enterprises, right? Because SMEs can create a website. So now they have to create a product website, more or less, and they have to be capable of dealing with that new technology stack. Are you looking specifically also at SMEs in the project? Is that a topic to focus on their needs?
Yes, we have an entire work package on the how to attend to and how can we support SMEs in the adoption. So SMEs are very hard to reach, and I'm not talking about here DPP startups. There are many DPP startups, that type of SMEs. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about SMEs such as a repair shop or a small manufacturer of products. Those are they're hard to reach. So we need a specific effort in the project to find people to interview and to listen to their needs and to design material so that is useful for them. That's
and you
it's
also
a big
have
challenge.
SME companies as part of your participants of the project, right? You must have around 100 participants or so when I calculated your projects and the number of companies participating.
Yes,
so they are also
we have
involved.
Exactly. There's more than 75 of them. Yeah. Inside the ecosystem pilots. And so this could be the sorting plant or the files. So we selected the pilots after an open call for pilots in the summer of 23, I think. And one of our selection criteria was the number of SMEs involved in the ecosystems.
Okay, very good. Can you maybe give us the timelines of the project? So when is this going to be finalized? What main results are you expecting from the project?
Okay. So so we've started in May 24, so we're almost at 1 year. This first year for the pilots was, so you have to imagine that each of these pilots is led by a DPP service provider that is in direct competition with all the other DPP service providers in the other pilots. So the first part of the project was how to create a team between people who are competing on the same market.
Yeah.
I leave you to understand how complex this was.
If someone can do it, you can do it.
Well, I did it a lot with the help of our pilot leader, colleagues from Fujitsu who are just simply wonderful, patient. And I chose Fujitsu because they're Japanese and we must give an international flavor to everything that we're doing in Europe. We must.
Fully agree.
So I choose partners in US, in Japan, and now on our new platform, I'm inviting partners from Taiwan, from all over the place. So that was the big challenge for the pilots, and also to have them open up a little bit on their solutions so that we can identify where the interoperability gaps are according to them. Okay, so this is the work that we did for the pilots up till now. But you can imagine, because this is all sensitive business information, how delicate this has to be done.
Yeah.
how complex this work is, and the care that must be brought to bring the level of trust among all these competitors. And this is totally understandable. Okay. In parallel to this, so identifying the interoperability gaps that they perceive among their solutions. That was one thing. And then in parallel to this, we've started to work on a new version of the DPP system architecture, building on the version that the Surpass 1 project published already in 24, in March 24. So this hopefully will be public in a couple months. In parallel to this, we just recently published our requirements for a DPP system core ontology. So that's now available. We are working on version 1 of our proposal for a core ontology. It doesn't have to be the only one. It's just a proposal for
which
so
can be reviewed, for example, by JTC 24 or yeah,
by
everyone?
whomever wants to build a core ontology for the
Okay.
DPP system, whether it's JDC, whether it's commission, whoever, or
Yeah.
anybody else. So that's the value of semantic interoperability, is that it's not a winner takes all thing. And as long as we stay in a winner takes all mentality, we will never progress. We will not progress quickly. So anyways, just politics aside.
Yeah.
Politics aside.
Yeah.
So this hopefully will soon be published. And
then
so
how does the project, when does the project end? How long does it take?
So it's a 3-year project. So we run until April of 27.
Okay, so you still have some time. So maybe tell us, because we're coming a little bit to the end of our podcast. Tell us a little bit, maybe, what are the next steps in the project, the next phase, or what are you working on at the moment?
Yeah. So as I said, we're finalizing version 1 of our new iteration of the architecture.
Yes.
We're finalizing the first version of our core ontology. We are defining the requirements for sector-specific ontologies aligned with the core ontology. We're looking a lot into the work done by UNECE to make sure we're semantically interoperable as much as possible. We are designing communication tools for SMEs. We're building cooperations with about 100 other EU-funded projects working on DPP. So that's another thing. We are rolling out a platform. It's called circular/data.org. And we're rolling out this platform as a completely free tool to be used by anyone who wants to put light on their DPP-related activities. So that might be they have a commercial offer about DPPs, or they are working on a pilot. And I want to hear about DPP pilots all over the world. I want to hear this. I want to have a place where we can marvel at our creativity.
Yeah. Well, maybe the UNTP or the UNEC is a good home for this. At least I know of a couple of pilots that are starting around there now as well. In your personal view, where is the DPP in 5 years and maybe in 10 years?
5 years is very, very short.
I mean, 2027 is becoming mandatory, at least for batteries.
Yeah. Yes. So personally, so right now the important thing is to make some basic architectural choices to keep the technology as open as possible. For me, that's right now. That's the immediate thing, the emergency right now. Personally, I think it's appropriate to see a very gradual rollout of the DPP, with focusing on mandatory DPPs in 27, 28, 29. All of this is where the focus is the mandatory part.
Yeah.
But if we lose sight of the non-mandatory additional things that can be piggybacked on top of this, and we only communicate about mandatory DPPs, then we're losing sight of something really fundamentally important. So
I think it's the industry jobs probably to do that, right? To also show the benefits of piggybacking on the DPP. And maybe that's not us that have to do that, but I guess the industry, the companies.
In Surpass 2, we have to deliver this.
Okay.
We have to quantify the economic and environmental benefits of our pilots.
Okay.
But we're too small. We're just a project.
Yeah.
I mean, we will not achieve this alone. It's not possible.
Yeah.
This is why I built these collaborations with 100 other EU-funded projects.
So you're saying you have to focus in the next 5 years on the mandatory ones, should not forget the piggybacking other good ideas on top of it. And in 10 years, what's the vision of in 10 years?
I think in 10 years, so in terms of applications for the DPP, I think in the short term, 5-10 years, the short-term applications is improving the efficiency of already existing circular activities such as repair or resell, making all these activities that are already there more efficient or more profitable, say. Okay, that would be fantastic if the DPP could do that in the short term.
Yeah.
Imagining entirely new business segments such as, remanufacturing of batteries for repurposing them. That's a fantastic goal, but that's complicated because you have to create an entirely new industry, and that won't happen in 10 years. So so in 10 years, we want mandatory DPPs across many sectors and getting the DPP technology as cheap as possible. That's what we want. And we want some nice use cases of non-mandatory uses of DPPs, doing things to make business activities profitable with circular activities.
Yeah.
Okay? We want increased profitability of these activities.
Yes.
Repair, maintenance. Maintenance is fantastic.
It is.
The use case. So maintenance, repair, sorting, reselling, that stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about recycling. Recycling, the DPP will have an impact on recycling in like 20, 30 years. So, except maybe shorter term for textiles. Maybe.
Yeah.
But that's to be seen. So.
Okay. Thank you, Carolynn, very much for all your insights, for your vision, and for all the information you shared. Thanks again. Good luck and a great success with your Surpass 2 project and all the other platforms and projects that you're cooperating with or starting off. And thank you so much for being there and helping to make the world a little bit greener. Thank you, Carolynn.
Thank you. Thank you, Susanne.